Nothing beats a homemade jelly donut.
Let's see what's cooking. Let's get the facts. Let's see what's cooking. It's time for yoyomax12.
Hello everyone, starting off with a medium-sized bowl and 1/2 cup of milk. Add to that 1/2 cup of water. Then you're going to place this in the microwave and heat it until it's very warm to the touch. And that's about 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Give or take a few degrees is not going to make a big difference as long as when you touch it, it feels very warm to the touch. Then add in 1/2 ounce or 2 packages of instant dry yeast and 1/3 of a cup of white granulated sugar. Stir that in. Now, if you use the instant yeast, you won't have to proof it. You don't have to let it sit there and ferment and bubble. You can just continue with the recipe right away. Add to that 3 egg yolks. I recommend that your eggs be at room temperature when you add the egg yolks. And then add in 1/3 of a cup of butter that's been brought to room temperature. And when you stir that in, the warm mixture should melt that butter up nicely. Then I had to transfer it into a larger bowl because now we're going to add in a bunch of flour. Now you're going to stir in approximately 3 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour. The reason this is approximate is that you're going to do it a little bit at a time. So start off with about a cup of flour, stir it in so that it's nice and smooth, and then continue to add little bits of flour until you get a dough ball that is formed in the center of your bowl. And you may not use up the entire 3 3/4 cups of flour. So once you get a nice soft dough ball, which will still be quite sticky in the center of the bowl, you can stop adding flour. I removed mine from the bowl. I cleaned the bowl out a little bit, and then I added a little bit of vegetable oil or olive oil in the bottom of the bowl. Placed the dough ball back in, turned it over just to grease it up a bit so it won't stick to the bowl when it's rising. I covered it with some plastic wrap and placed it in a warm spot for it to rise. And you're going to let it rise about 1.5 hours until it's doubled in size. I put mine in my oven with just the oven light on, and that gives it a nice warm spot to rise. Once it's doubled in size, you're going to turn it out onto a countertop or a work surface that's been lightly floured, and you're going to knead it approximately 10 times. And add more flour if it's too sticky, like it sticks to your hands or sticks to your countertop. So after you knead it about 10 times, it should be fairly elastic and smooth. Cut the dough ball in half. Then take one of those halves and roll it out to about 1/4 inch thickness, adding little bits of flour if it's sticking too much to your rolling pin or to your countertop. Then using a biscuit cutter or a round cookie cutter, cut it into rounds, into little circles. On half of the dough rounds, you're going to place 1 teaspoon approximately of jelly or jam. I'm using raspberry jam. Then take some egg white and just lightly brush it around the edge of the round, and then add a plain dough round over top and press down to seal the edges. I pick them up and pinch them a little bit all the way around. You want to do this just to make sure that the jelly or the jam you put in the center doesn't leak out while it's cooking. Then place them on a greased cookie sheet or one covered with a silicone mat. Cover the whole thing with plastic wrap. Make sure the plastic wrap is greased well so it doesn't stick. And place it somewhere warm to rise until doubled. It's going to take about 1 hour. I put mine in my oven with just the oven light on. Once they've risen till doubled, you're going to heat some cooking oil to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. Gently drop them in, cook them about 1 minute per side until they are nicely golden brown. Turn them over, cook the other side, and then you're going to remove them and drain them on some paper toweling. Now I'm using an electric skillet that has a temperature regulator on it. It's important that you use oil that's about 375 degrees Fahrenheit because if it's too hot, they will burn on the outside and will be uncooked on the inside. And if the oil isn't hot enough, they will soak up a lot of grease. So when the donuts are still warm, roll them into some granulated sugar or some powdered sugar and serve them up. Now the very best time to eat these is when they are still warm and you've just made them. If you've never had a homemade yeast donut that's still warm out of the fryer, you really are missing out on something because these are spectacularly good. They're so good. In the unlikely event that these donuts are not consumed the same day that they were made, which will be a very difficult thing not to do, you can put them in a sealed container and store them at room temperature. Thanks for watching. On your screen right now is a video where I make donuts using refrigerated buttermilk biscuit dough from a can. Now these certainly aren't quite as good as homemade yeast donuts, but they're pretty tasty and they're nice and quick if you don't have time for all that dough making and all that rising. So go ahead and click right on your screen or see the link in the About section below if you want to watch the video. Bye-bye.